The cretins over at Fox Business Channel are now doing open threats of murder and regime change on air. This is wild. I mean, we already had John Bolton say that it's basically about the oil, that's why they're doing this. Venezuela has the world's, largest oil reserves. And so U.S. companies want to get their hands on that, and the government is basically facilitating it. So we already know that's the case. But now we've graduated to the point of literal violent threats on air as if it's casual, normal conversation. Take a look.
I think we now need to seriously consider a military intervention. Ideally, a multinational one with substantial participation by Latin American nations. But let's be clear, this is a humanitarian crisis. We cannot let this go on. Sanctions may well not be enough.
Joining me right now is the author of Dark Winter, retired Brigadier General Anthony Teta. So good to see you, General.
Great to be with you, Trish.
Is he right? Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
Does the U.S. need to intervene? Explain.
Yeah, I think, Secretary Pompeo saying that all of our diplomats have left the country, that's a key indicator and warning that there's a military option in the mix brewing. And in my point of view, what we really need to do, this is a humanitarian crisis of epic proportions. We've also got a nexus between Russia, Iran, and Hezbollah and Cuba there they are enemies of our nation, and we've also got the world's largest oil reserves there. So we got a lot of compelling reasons to be there, and so we need a sophisticated plan, much like we had in 1994 with the Haiti invasion, where we had a peacekeeping force on an aircraft carrier offshore, and we had the 82nd Airborne Division in the air, and we had Colin Powell, Sam Nunn, and Jimmy Carter meeting with Cedras, the dictator. And it really was brinksmanship up until the 11th hour. And so something of that nature where we can come in and provide humanitarian relief. We've got the armed teeth of the 18th Airborne Corps that is bearing down on Caracas and the very well-known places that Maduro hides out. We can target those pretty surgically. And then we need to protect Guaido, and we need to bring him into power, and we need to help in a very big way the Venezuelan people. That is the number one purpose here. And then number two would be to get rid of Iran, Russia, Hezbollah, and Cuba out of that area. That's a 4-hour flight from the United States. It's we've got enemies knocking on the door there that are not far away when you talk about some of these intercontinental ballistic missiles that are being made today.
All right, so walk me through the first part, which is getting Maduro out and Guaido in so that he can call for those free elections. Maduro's not going anywhere. In fact, I spoke a couple of weeks ago with his so-called vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, who said to me, "We're not going anywhere, Trish." So if they're not budging, how do you influence this from a military perspective? Does this mean special forces?
Yeah, I mean, he can watch the movie Oh Dark 30 and, figure out what happened to Osama bin Laden. He can, watch what happened to Noriega. We have the capability to get in there and do what we need to do to remove Maduro. Obviously, it would be better to do that diplomatically, applying the diplomatic element of power there, with some diplomats going down there and negotiating with him and telling him it's a lost cause. So that's obviously the best method.
They are trying that.
They're trying that, but he needs to understand that a bullet to the forehead may be his way out of Venezuela. So, I mean, that's just the bottom line. And we have that capability. And if we've removed our diplomats, that's a real key indicator and warning that we're getting ready to tighten the screws on the Maduro regime.
This is sheer lunacy. He just said a bullet to the forehead might be his only way out of Venezuela. They're threatening to murder a foreign leader on live TV. This is a leader who has not in any way, shape, or form threatened the U.S. homeland. So they're threatening to do an illegal offensive invasion and murder a foreign leader on live TV. The mask is off of the U.S. empire at this point. Listen, it used to be the case. They would at least bullshit you, and they would at least act like, oh, let's build a case that this crazy tin pot foreign dictator is maybe about to attack us. Here's a bullshit argument that can dupe people who don't know the details of this stuff that, oh my goodness, baddie dictator X is about to come after us, and therefore we have no choice but to go in because we got to protect our homeland, bro. That's why we got to do it. And you know, without fail, you would chip away, and at some point you get maybe 60% of the country that says, okay, fine, go do it. And then they go do it, and then, you know, years later we find out, whoa, that person was not going to attack us, that person did not have weapons of mass destruction, this was really just a regime change effort in order to make it so that the U.S. has more geopolitical power and we can jack natural resources and we can be the world's sole superpower. And then people just shrug and go, oh, whatever, I guess is what it is. And then now it's rinse and repeat, but now we're at the point where they don't even bother to bullshit you anymore. They're just like, yeah, we'll put a bullet in his head. We don't like his leadership. It is about the oil. So, yeah, that's what we'll do. What the fuck? What the fuck? They care. Oh my God, we care so much about the hurting Venezuelans, bro. Oh, you do? What about the people in Flint, Michigan who are drinking poisoned water? How about that? What about them? What about the 32 to 45,000 Americans that die every year because they don't have access to basic health care? What about them? What about them, huh? What about our infrastructure, which gets a grade of D+? How about that? Maybe we should upgrade that and take care of our own people? What about the fact that we have hookworm, which is a third world disease, in rural parts of Alabama? Because there's extreme poverty there, and they don't even have the sewage pipe set up properly. What about that? Maybe we should fix that. Maybe we should care about Americans before we care about Venezuelans. And by the way, again, they're just using that argument as a cover. Oh, yeah, this is really about Venezuelan civilians. I'm sure. Just same way you cared about the Iranian civilians back when you toppled a democratically elected leader who was going to nationalize their oil, Mohammad Mossadegh, and you put in the Shah, who gave the U.S. and the U.K. cheap oil. Jesus Christ, man. So, the first guy you heard was calling for military intervention, and that was a former Bill Clinton advisor. So a bipartisan war hawk, neocon, lunatic, war criminal, bloodthirsty assholes. And then you have a former general who is probably being paid by the military-industrial complex, because that's how this all works, by the way. You got these people who are on the payroll of Boeing or Raytheon, and then they go out there and they make a case for something. They don't disclose where they're getting paid. And of course, lo and behold, their argument is always, always, always for more war. And then you have the bullshit argument of Iran, Cuba, Russia, Hezbollah. They're a threat to us from Venezuela. He said there are enemies knocking on the door, and it can come in the form of an intercontinental ballistic missile. So the argument is, and notice, he doesn't say it, because he knows if he just flat out says it, that's so preposterous, everybody will laugh at him. But he just implies it. Like, oh, in Venezuela, Iran's there, Cuba's there, Russia's there, and Hezbollah is there. And obviously, I mean, they got ballistic missiles, so you never know what they're going to do. You just saw it, man. With zero pushback from the host, in fact, the host agrees with all of this shit, they're literally arguing, let's put a bullet in the forehead and murder a foreign leader who we don't like, even though this leader has not in any way, shape, or form threatened us. And before anybody tries to make the dumb argument of, well, you know, he's a bad guy, bro. He's a bad guy. You know who else is a bad guy? Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia. Are we talking about putting a bullet in his head? He's a really bad guy. The government in Myanmar is really bad. They're doing a genocide of the Rohingya. Are we going to put a bullet in their head? We back 73% of the world's dictatorships. This is not about humanitarianism. Don't let anybody fall for that argument. Listen, if you're on the left and you're not speaking out against this kind of shit, why are you even on the left? Like, what's it about? You know, why are you on the left? You literally have, on major news networks, threats to murder in cold blood foreign heads of state when they have not in any way, shape, or form threatened us. Flip the script. What if the head of Iran threatened to put a bullet in, you know, in Trump's head? What if Maduro threatened to put a bullet in Trump's head? It'd be nonstop 24/7 news, but do it the other way around, everybody shrugs. You shouldn't be shrugging. You should be screaming against this.